All right, welcome into Floor is Yours, an extension of 5 on the Floor here on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. We'll tell you about who's participating tonight and what the topics are. Before we do, I want to tell you about a great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, another of our local sponsors. You can find them right there in North Miami. Talked about them for a long time. We've sent a lot of customers there. You've got to mention 5 Reasons if you go, though. It's U-Brake Wheel Fix. We're going to talk about culture tonight. U-Brake Wheel Fix is the wheel repair, refinish, and custom wheel specialist. So they offer the big three of all your car wheel needs with over 20 years of experience. U-Brake Wheel Fix repairs damaged wheels from curb rash, cracks, or bends, all under one roof with in-house powder coating, CNC machining, and polishing. They offer the new custom wheels, too, from your favorite brands, and no credit check financing up to $5,000 for a new set of wheels. So make sure you check them out. It's U-Brake Wheel Fix. It's your total automotive wheel solution, located in North Miami, right off of Biscayne and Northeast 146th Street. Check out their great work all across social media, Instagram to Facebook. Again, it's at U-Brake Wheel Fix, Twitter as well, 305-748-0112. 305-748-0112. Reach out to Mark and the crew. Schedule your appointment today. ubrakewheelfix.com, changing the way that you see wheels. All right, let's get to the crew tonight. We've got Alex Toledo, we've got Greg Sylvander, and we've got Tony Schwartz. You can follow him at Greg Sylvander, Tropical Blanket, and Tony Schwartz, NBA, respectively. Manny Chang is behind the wheels tonight. We also do always want to mention prizepicks.com. Use that code 5. I'll talk about them a little bit later. We're going to go a bunch of different directions tonight. We're going to take some stuff from our Off the Floor feed. We hope you're subscribed to that. That's exclusive content. We put some stuff on there that if you were following there, you would have known 6 hours ago. We're going to talk about it a little bit more here today. But the primary topic today is Tyler Herro. And I feel like we haven't devoted enough attention on 5 on the Floor to what's actually happened with him since the All-Star break. You're talking about 25 points a game on 52% shooting, 47% from 3. He hasn't been one of the best 6 men in the league since the All-Star break. He's been one of the best guards in the league, and that's the leap that we're currently seeing. And I know the Levitard guys make fun of that all the time, but I'm sorry, it's a leap. And so we're going to get into what his trajectory is, because we've always talked about the Heat trajectory is the Bam trajectory. But in a lot of ways now, it's looking like the Herro trajectory as well. So I'm going to flip it over here to Greg first. I mean, when we talked about him before the season, and we appreciate the comments, shout out to Alex streaming live from inside a Magic 8 Ball. I have a Magic 8 Ball in my daughter's room. We should just flip. You look exactly like that. You're the cube. No, come on. You can't say it's not like a Rubik's Cube. You've seen a Magic 8 Ball. I'm sorry. Thanks.
There's a lot of Magic 8 Balls in Miami. Come on now.
Oh, that's especially on St. Patrick's Day. That's true. By the way, Lynette, check out A Aggressive Insurance. She's a sponsor of Post Up 5R, so we appreciate you checking in, Lynette. But let's get to it, Greg, because look, we've spoke about Tyler Herro in the context of a whole bunch of different things. Okay, could he be sort of a second or third scorer on this team? You know, I said he'd lead the team in scoring this year, but nobody else believed that. But we've also talked about him as the piece to get the piece. Is it possible now that he's the piece?
Yes.
Not the piece to get the piece, but he's the piece.
Yes. I can't emphasize enough. Like when you watch what he's doing, and then when you think about the way that he develops players and further maximizes players, if we talk about teams, like players that have played for other teams, and when they come to Miami, they get maximized in a lot of ways. There's a couple exceptions to that rule, but very few. I think that, the sky's the limit even more for Tyler Herro in a situation like Miami than if he were elsewhere. So to me, as long as he shows up in the playoffs, as long as we continue to see the consistency from him, the way that he's played, like, listen, 22 years old would tie for the youngest 6 man of the year that I could find. I mean, I'm not breaking down year over year, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. And I just think we're at a spot now where he goes through stretches where he's legitimately unguardable. And it may not be all game like it was with Dwayne, but at least it's 4 stretches of the game that offensively he just can't be stopped.
All right, we're going to get to more Tyler Herro conversation, but I do have to mention that the reason I was laughing was, I don't know if everybody saw Malika Andrews' tweet with Tyler talking about dangerous loomers and basically ESPN has to pay attention to us now. So Malika was at practice today. So I tweeted out, this is such an ESPN thing. Ignore the good teams all year. Now storylines about those teams being ignored. So Sedano just texted me with the tweet and says, "You're never happy." That's right. That's the game. I'm never happy. That's how this thing plays out. But let's go to it, Alex, because we've had there it is. We've had many conversations again about like, okay, you got to get a Donovan Mitchell, right? You've got, I know how Truly feels. You've got to get a Dame Lillard. You've got to get a Bradley Beal. Okay. Well, Tyler Herro right now is not being paid like any of them. I mean, eventually it's looking like he's trending. He's getting closer. But they're all older than him by quite a good amount. Beal especially has 12 years of wear on his tires in the NBA. So like, how could anybody make a case right now that you need to upgrade that position? I guess that would be the question.
Well, I don't think it's a need. I think when we talk about needs and holes of this team, it would probably be from a roster perspective, backup 4, but they've really got it all kind of figured out at this point. I don't think the Tyler thing is any sort of issue at all. I just think, it's like if it comes down to it, if Donovan Mitchell were to end up becoming available, I wouldn't be surprised if the Heat were a part, we're into that. That's basically what it comes down to. It's like, I don't think they're looking to trade Tyler Herro, right? But like, he's one of those players that I think the Heat would
maybe
consider
him last summer. I mean, we didn't make that stuff up.
Can I just sneak one thing in here?
Mm-hmm.
They don't need to trade him. That was my point.
I haven't had the chance to ask Ethan this question directly, and I think that our listeners would be really interested to know.
And I'm going to flip it to Tony after this. All right, so give me the question.
No, and I don't mean to grab the ball and run in the other direction. So, if the Heat were to win the championship and Tyler Herro were to ascend to the level that we all expect he would need to do for them to actually win the championship, do you think that if Donovan Mitchell became available, that Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra and all those guys would co-sign sending Tyler away for Donovan Mitchell, or do you think they would keep Tyler?
In that very specific circumstance, I do not think they would.
Not the same summer. Not the same summer. There would have to be some time in between.
And I think
it's interesting that you and I are aligned on that.
But that's very specific circumstance.
Correct. Understood. So
let's let Tony speak. Hashtag let Tony speak.
Don't deflect on me.
No, but that's a very specific circumstance. I mean, getting to the Eastern Conference Finals with Tyler playing well is a different conversation than winning the championship with Tyler playing well. When Riley has upgraded, it has been because they've come close, but not close enough. The Eddie Jones team, 2005, might have. Now let's ask this question, and I'll throw it to Tony because he was following this too. If they win a title in 2005, if Dwayne doesn't pull his rib cage, okay, in Game 5. And miss Game 6, and then is ineffective in Game 7. If they don't, do you really think Pat makes the 5-for-5 moves that he made that offseason? I don't. If they win the title with that team, he would have brought most of those guys back. Pat is a sentimentalist at heart. Okay, I mean, he just is. He brought back the 06 team when he shouldn't have. He paid the guys in after the 16-17 season. He's not. You win a championship with Tyler Herro, he's not trading him. All right, but I'm gonna give Tony a different question here, because. One of the questions going forward is, okay, if Tyler Herro is that guy, then he's going to be a starting 2 guard. Like Donovan Mitchell wasn't coming off the bench in his 3rd season anymore, right? So, I mean, isn't that, I guess that's the next step of the evolution is Tyler handling that? And then how does that affect, what are the dominoes of that as we go forward?
Well, it becomes depth. You're questioning, where your spacing can come from, what kind of players you're throwing out into the floor with him. But I have no problem with Tyler starting. Maybe not this season because we can just operate so well as a bench unit with him as the leading attacker. But look, when he plays point guard right now, he's in the 98th percentile for free throw rates. Okay. Every 100 field goal attempts, he's getting 26 free throws. That's the only question I've ever had about Tyler Herro, and he's answering it loud and freaking clear. This man can get to the line. He can create his own shot. He can light it up from 3. If Tyler's 5'181", if that's the contract, if it's coming, that first year's $28 million, and that's a hard one to stomach because you still have Lowry on the books. But next year, if he's the real deal, you're paying that guy $30 million along with Bam Adebayo, and you have cap flexibility at that point. I mean, you have a young core that can really get after it. Miami's in a great position. They're in the best position you could possibly ask for. There's no team in the league that wouldn't ask to have a young core with 2 guys that could potentially be, all-stars. It's a great time to be a Heat fan.
Alex, let me ask you this question. Is Donovan Mitchell, in your view, a great defender?
No.
Why don't we talk about that?
He should be, though.
But he's not, right?
He can
I
get
know.
50.
We all agree he's not. He's not awful, but he's not a great defender, right? Rudy
No.
cleans up a lot of stuff for him.
No, for sure. And I think it's more talked around NBA Twitter, but like I think that the Donovan Mitchell stuff is because he came out of Louisville. I'm sorry, I know there's a proper way to pronounce it. He came out of there with the reputation of being a strong defender, had all the measurables, and kind of started off that way for the Jazz. But I think ever since he's kind of taken on this year by year offensive load, where he's the main shot creator there, their offense is really lethal. But he's the linchpin of that. And I think it takes away from his defensive capabilities. Not to make excuses, he's got to be better, and it's part of the reason why I think the Jazz struggle in the playoffs. That's also been talked about. Their general point of attack defense is not good, and Donovan is a huge part of that. He can get lost on screens, off ball stuff. I think that's stuff that you see with other stars that take on huge loads offensively. And I think just like in a theoretical world where the Heat were to trade for him, I think you bank on the amount of guys they have around him to make it easier on him, the different types of coverages they could throw out, not always having a funnel to the big, and just having much less of an offensive load to carry night after night if you were to be here. But I'm not even thinking about down the line. I think the main thing to take away from all of this that we talked about is the gap between Donovan Mitchell and Tyler has, it's come down quite a bit. Not that he's right there with him, but the way that he's played since the All-Star break, specifically, if he were to keep up this level throughout the whole playoff run, that would be extremely impressive. Then I would start being like.
But let me jump in here and just answer this in 10 seconds or less, because there's a reason I asked you this question, and thanks for the donation, and we'll get to it. Is Bradley Beal, in your view, at this stage of his career, a good defender?
No.
Not would he be a good defender in Miami? Has he been a good defender for the past couple of years? Yes.
No. Next question. No.
Okay. So can I ask this then? Why is it we only speak about this in the terms of Tyler Herro getting hunted? Why? Because Donovan Mitchell and Bradley Beal look like they should be good defenders? They haven't been good defenders, right? The fact that Donovan Mitchell came out of school and looked like a defender.
Theories. It's like the slow cracker thing. Right? It's the slow cracker thing. Yeah, man.
Okay,
but I think Donovan has shown it at times. It's just now been a couple of seasons.
The first thing. Look, I was at Dwayne Wade's intro, okay, in 2003, dating myself here, and I was at Dwayne, and all Pat talked about at that press conference was that he fell in love with Dwayne because of how he could get into a defensive stance. There was nothing about offense. Okay, the rest of it was going to be a point guard. And we know Dwayne was a great defender in his own way, okay? Although at times, particularly later in his career, he took possession after possession after possession off, okay? We know that. We acknowledge that, okay? So I get it that you have to carry more of an offensive burden. You're not as good on defense. But the case I'm trying to make here is I think the reason that people view a separation, a big separation between guys like Mitchell or is because there's a perception that Tyler can't play any defense. And my overall point, I'll go to you, Tony, on this, is that his defense, if you look at the metrics, okay, and you listen to the ways Eric talks about him, it is about as good as Beal's and Mitchell's has been. Not what Beal and Mitchell should be, but what they've been. Tony, am I wrong?
You're a little wrong, because what they're asking Donovan Mitchell to do is be one of the lead perimeter defenders, right? Tyler in this system is just mostly a help defender when he's on the floor, depending on who he's out there with. Donovan playing next to Jimmy, Bam, and Kyle is now, I think he'd be leaps and bounds a better defender in Miami's system. Just, that's an all NBA talent. You swing for the fences every single time an all NBA talent is there and available for you. But
what about Beal?
No Bradley Beal.
Well, both of those guys are more athletic than Tyler coming out of school, just always. And
I would rather take my shot
in the playoffs too.
I would rather take my chances. Here's the thing that Tyler has given us. It's given us stability and we don't have to overreact to off seasons anymore. Mm-hmm. If Donovan Mitchell is there and we can make the trade, great. If he's not, we have Tyler Herro. There's no downside here. But if an all NBA talent is available, like Donovan Mitchell, first team guy, I'm swinging for the fences every single time.
And I understand that, Tony, but I think this is something that fans do all the time, okay? Is they talk about what a guy is now and forget what a guy can become. Donovan Mitchell was drafted roughly the same spot that Tyler Herro was coming out of college. There were questions about Donovan Mitchell when he came out of school. I know that Heat liked him, obviously. We've talked about that. Okay. And probably would have taken him if he'd still been there, but he slipped out of the top 10 for a reason. There was a feeling that there was some limitations to his game. Okay. What happens is once guys become all-stars, all NBA players, we forget about the fact that they had some flaws early on that had to be corrected. I know Donovan came on. He had a great rookie season, like a house of fire, but he came into a different team in Utah. That team had traded Gordon Hayward. They needed a scorer, and he stepped in. Tyler didn't step into that same situation. I'm just saying this, like we always assume that the guy who's younger can't develop into the guy who's established. And what I'm saying is when you look at Tyler Herro's trajectory, okay, the fact that he got knocked back in the face in his second year, which wasn't as bad as everybody thought, okay, or everybody projected, or the people at ESPN or the bubble boy and all the rest of that. But he took a slight step back in some ways when they gave him more responsibility. When, by the way, he was exhausted, okay, after, a 3-month break, after the longest season by far of his basketball career. But he's gone. I mean, he's done, like, you want a stock to do this. He's done this. And who is to say he can't do this and get to the level that Mitchell and Beal are at? I just think this is, and I do think that there is, and again, I'm not saying anybody's racist in this case, but I think there is a stereotyping element to this because we really haven't seen anybody like Tyler Herro before, right, Greg?
Yeah, Ethan, I want to clarify when I'm saying the cracker stuff just to be funny and lighthearted, quite frankly. But what I mean by that is that I think that there is an inherent, I don't know what it is, but there's something about his size, his arm length, and also there's just an element of that most
things
white
are
dudes,
fair though.
They're not as athletic, that they think that the upside is not there necessarily in a way that you may get from another guy. So like that's what I mean by the cracker stuff. Like it's not just that he's
and I don't
white.
think anybody's accusing you of being that, but I think there are racial stereotypes in sports that play out both ways. Okay, whether it was black quarterbacks or whether it's on the other side white cornerbacks. Okay, I mean these things play out both ways. But what I'm getting at again is that there is no. We keep talking about who Tyler Herro is going to become, and we're in the second part of this episode. We're going to talk about previous 6 men and what they became. There is no archetype for Tyler Herro. Like when he came out of college, it was like, okay, he's going to be Nick Stauskas. I mean, think of how ridiculous that is that he just had Nick Stauskas on their roster. Does Tyler Herro to you in any way resemble Nick Stauskas? But I'm saying like, we're like, is it Mike Miller? This kind of poetic lifestyle, Tyler looking like our closer each and every game. I believe that. But I think, I mean, could we, is there a comp? Like look at all, let's look at the white players for a second. Okay. Is there a comp among any of those players? We'll get to James's comment in a second. For Tyler Herro. It's not Mark Price, right?
It could have been Bobby Sura if he ended up being good, but he
wasn't
good.
I mean, can either Alex or Tony, can you think, and let's stick with white players for a second, because this is where the comparisons are made. Is there a comp?
It's funny that we're doing this right now.
Yeah, I know.
I think this is part of why Heat fans have blinders on about
Manu?
this. I don't think it's intentional. Who's that?
Not Manu.
Manu?
He's not white. Come on, dog. Are you serious?
I think it's hard. I think you're limiting the conversation too much. It's hard to find a comp for Tyler, period, point blank, color, regardless.
Good call, Tony.
Like, I can't think of another player in his position coming off the bench for him and he has a 28% usage rate. All right. He's coming off the bench. Like, and he's not playing much more minutes than other 6 men of the year, but his usage rate is as high as it is because we depend on him to create so much offense. I can't think of a guy that existed like that in the league. And when we talk about Tyler and Donovan, I think this is all coming down to the build in 2 years. Does Kyle Lowry sign another contract here? What are we doing with Jimmy Butler? How does he look in 2 years? Does the team think they need a starter? Do they think they need a guy that's going to be the night in, night out dude? Has Bam Adebayo developed? Those are the conversations that are for the future with Tyler and trading him. But outside of that, man, this guy stays. They developed him in this system, right? They asked him to meet goals and add weight and muscle, and he did all of it. So at this point, we almost owe him.
All right, Alice, I want to get to you after the break. And I want to bring back the Manu conversation because I do think, I don't know what you want to classify him as, Greg, but I do think that this is the closest comp, honestly. I think he's the closest comp, okay? And I think his fit on this team is the closest
It's like a hybrid between him and Lou Will, I feel. Something like that.
Right. And I want to get to it. Okay. But before we do, I do want to tell you about another sponsor here of this program and also of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, 5 on the Floor, another local company. It's All Pro Construction Builders. We know in South Florida, hurricane season's around the corner. You felt the wind today. It's coming. Are you looking into protecting your home and business? You should be. Make sure to contact All Pro Construction Builders. They specialize in impact windows and doors for residential and commercial properties, if you're involved with that as well. All Pro Construction Builders is a state-certified, licensed, and insured general contractor. They service Miami-Dade and Monroe. But I'm supposed to mention they also do service Broward, okay, which we know pretty much 50% of our audience lives in Broward. So check them out at All Pro Construction Builders on Instagram. You will deal with an owner from start to finish. It's Danny, okay? 305-484-4429. That's 305-484-4429. Mention 5 Reasons. You get a 10% discount in addition to the free estimate. So again, it's Danny at 305-484-4429. All right, I mentioned Ginobili, but let's get to this comment first. James, is Luka a good defender? He's a big body, but he doesn't strike me as a good defender, at least up to this point in his career. He's not. He's not.
He needs to get in shape.
He's had his best season this year. Like the Mavericks have been a good defensive team, and he's he fits in. He doesn't stand out like Trae Young, right? Yeah. So I think there's a difference between that. So,
but they've gotten. You got to give kid credit. I mean, I think he's gotten really good defensive play out of guys who were not perceived to be good defenders previously. So I mean, but I don't think Luka's a plus defender.
No,
Herro has Kobe written all over him with shorter arms. I think that's a bit of a stretch. Let's talk. We're going to get into Ginobili and Lou Williams, but I want to. Lou plays into this too. CJ McCollum is a guy, Tracy, that we have talked about a lot. Okay, and I think there is a definite comp. Now we're getting into race and stuff.
I think Tyler can be better than CJ.
Okay, well, so that's fair. But let's get into the 6 Man of the Year research that you did. Yeah, I think it's interesting because guys at that age who perform at that level as a 6 man, very few in history, they kind of go 2 different directions. So what did you find?
They go in 2 directions. There's a very small group that were 6 Men of the Year so early on in their careers that then they had the years to ascend and become all-stars, or there's groups of players that there's actually 3 groups. There's another group that are in their late 20s to early 30s that find that role after being a starter previously. Mm-hmm. And so like Jason Terry is an example of a guy who that's how he evolved into a 6 man. He was a starter in Atlanta. So and then there's this other camp, and it's the guys that they essentially become career 6th men, and they just basically become microwave scorers, or whatever they do well is what they do off the bench for the duration of their career. And as I look through it, the youngest player to ever win the award is Ben Gordon at age 22. So Tyler Herro would tie that. And I know that the months between their birthdays will tie break that. Listeners or viewers can go find that. And other than that, it's a lot of older players. So I think Ben Gordon is an interesting also player comp in terms of the way that he impacted the game to Tyler Herro, but obviously it's not perfect. But Lou Williams, Jamal Crawford, these guys became career microwave off the bench guys, right? So that's the other avenue that you end up going. And I feel like right now we'd have to say Tyler is more on the James Harden path, even though it's not James Harden's game.
Right. Thank God. But I don't, I know people don't like me saying that. But I don't think any of us think that Tyler's headed to be a career 6 man, right? He's not going to be Lou or Jason Terry, or not that there's anything wrong with what those guys contributed. You don't think so, or you don't know so?
I don't think so. I'm just saying I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I think. Look, the thing is, what I wanted to say last segment was really it comes down to how he performs in the playoffs, right? Because I think we're going to see him a lot more in the role that we think of him ideally, as far as what matches up with his skill level, where his hierarchy on the team as a scorer. We're going to see more of that in this playoff, or we're going to see it against the best defenses, or the best competition in generally. So I just think it so much of it really depends on that, because that's what they're playing for. And obviously it's great that we've seen this leap from him, and I'm super high on him. Like I said, I'm not thinking about trading him at all. That hasn't been in my mind whatsoever. You just asked me a Donovan Mitchell question, and things got tough. But really, the Tyler Herro conversation is he is their best scorer right now. It's kind of a neck and neck competition in my eyes between him and Jimmy. We just know that they play completely different games. Jimmy is just a lot better at getting to the line. But like Tony mentioned before, Tyler has improved in that aspect as well, even since the All-Star break. So I just think.
But to your point about the playoffs, Alex,
he hasn't been in the role of the other.
His role is going to change in the playoffs, I believe. Okay, because I still think that card's going to be played. I think Tyler Herro is going to be starting games in the postseason.
He's just never been in the role that Mitchell and Beal have been in for years now. I think that's why it's hard to consider.
Well, Beal hasn't had that role. How many years has Beal actually had that role in the playoffs?
I'm just saying. No. I understand that. I'm just saying, like, those guys have been doing it as starters for winning teams for not, Beal not so much recently, but I think they just had that pedigree that Tyler hasn't had yet. We haven't seen him, like, obviously we saw him perform well in the playoffs in the bubble, but as far as like him playing with a bigger role, trying to be that guy, we haven't seen it yet.
I get it, but Tony, Bradley Beal has never been the best player on his playoff team. Ever.
No, he hasn't. And to Alex's point, real quick, like, he's right about, I think, the pace that Tyler could not be a sixth man anymore and be a starter. But what brings Tyler to that space is his creation. Like, I think he's a hell of a playmaker. This year, so much improved just because he has a handle on his dribble. He needs to stop throwing alley-oops into space and trying to decapitate our players. But outside of that, like, he's vastly improved there. But no, Bradley Beal's never been the best player on his team or a best player in the playoffs.
Mitchell is one of the, like, in the playoffs, the time he's been in the league, he's been one of the best playoff scorers in the league, period.
Who, Beal?
Right.
No, Mitchell.
Oh, no, Mitchell. Donovan is
that's a different conversation.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's two different levels there.
John Wall and Paul Pierce were the two go-to guys 100%. On the Washington team that got the first.
Absolutely.
Okay, and that was old Paul Pierce. And as much as we hate to admit that, yes, Greg.
And if the Heat come up short, like, I understand that if Tyler ends up going for Donovan Mitchell, like, I have never once said that I was necessarily against that idea if things don't work out. But that was the whole caveat there. I'm just trying to make sure I clarify these things so that people don't come after me.
We talk about this D Mitch trade kind of like how we talked about Giannis offseason. Like, it's just there, and all we have to do is pick it up out of the dust.
I prefer to talk about it like the Kyle Lowry move. Like, we knew it was going to inevitably for the Jimmy Butler move.
I mean, everybody would love it. It makes total sense. It's a fit. It's all there. But if it doesn't happen, we have.
Oh, I think Tony froze, but I think I know
what it was me.
I think I know what he was going to say. All right, but before we close here, I do want to. There you go, Tony. Your hand's moving up. I think you froze and then you unfroze. But I do want to finish here, okay? And before we do, again, PrizePicks.com. Use the code 5. Thanks everybody for donating tonight, and thanks to our sponsors, All Pro Construction, Builders, and also you Break Wheel Fix. The Manu conversation, okay, to me is the conversation here, because exactly what I'm talking about with Herro is what Manu was for those Spurs teams. Pop would insert him in the starting lineup at times when he needed a change of pace. He did it against the Heat. And this idea, I think, for some that, Tyler, and there's some different elements to his game than Manu's game, but there are similarities. Okay. Manu could handle, he could play both positions. He could slash, he could finish in the lane. He was tough. He didn't give a damn. Okay. He had an edge to him. I mean, there are worse things to be compared to than basically a Hall of Famer who was a great fit on balanced teams, where at times he was the team's best scorer. I mean, even with Tim Duncan and Tony Parker and later Kawhi Leonard, he was at times the guy that I can tell you that the Heat were most worried about from a scoring perspective, right? So, like, would you have traded Manu Ginobili before he entered his prime? I guess because Manu at 21 was not in the NBA yet, I don't think, okay, at 22. Like, would you have traded Manu Ginobili in his prior to him entering his prime? Any of you?
No, it'd be like asking, would you have traded Manu for like Jerry Stackhouse? Something like that, right? Is Donovan Mitchell better than Jerry Stackhouse was? Do I need to go with a higher player than that?
Stack will get mad, but yeah, he was better. I mean, I'm trying to think of the comp.
Average like 30.
Like, who's a player that's
Prime Ray Allen, maybe?
Okay. So that's an interesting question. Would you do prime Ray Allen? See, in the Spurs, so this is another part of this, a wrinkle, and then we'll close.
Okay.
If the Heat stay this good, where they're like vying for conference finals and they're going to have veterans on the team inevitably. So there is a path for Tyler to be a certain role that's similar to Manu, maybe not as a bench player, but similar to Manu, and that he's surrounded by guys that are maybe bigger names at times or bigger focuses because of the different. But if they win, doesn't matter.
Isn't this the comp though, guys? And I'll let one of the two of you guys finish.
I love what Leif was saying by the way. He doesn't need to be like what Donovan Mitchell is to the Jazz. He could be what Manu was to the Spurs, and that's good enough.
Because Alex, to that point, when you look at the 2014 Spurs, that is to me the closest comp to this team, right? I mean, Lowry doesn't have Tony's burst, okay, obviously at this stage, but both competent point guards. Kyle's a better defender than Tony ever was. Tony was not a good defender. Okay, you have Herro in the Manu role, and you have Jimmy in the Kawhi role, and you have Bam in the Duncan role. And I'm talking about Duncan, who was not at that point Duncan greatest power forward ever, but was just a very good, very, very good, trusted power forward. Also someone that took off the floor, okay, at the end of a game. All right. So, I mean, isn't that the closest comp to this team? And then you have shooters like Patty Mills. I feel like that's, I don't know. I mean, I feel like that's the comp is the 2014 Spurs. Is that fair, Alex?
Oh, I thought you were asking Tony the question. Yeah,
no, go ahead. I mean, is that a fair comparison?
Absolutely,
what this team's upside is.
I agree with you. Like, I think that it's a really similar team. I think the Spurs probably moved the ball a bit better. I think they were just more committed to it. Whereas, like the Heat, for them to succeed, I think you're going to see a lot of them slowing down the pace. For as much as we all want to see the movement, and I'm sure they'll still screen and move around, but as far as amount of passes per possession, I think that'll actually go down during the playoffs because they're going to have to go matchup hunting in a lot of these types of things where people are going to try to make it hard on them, and they're going to have to pick certain matchups that they like. And I'm going to be saying that a lot for the next few months, like specifically when the playoffs start, because I think that's going to be kind of the key to them getting to where they want to go. And that doesn't necessarily play out as the beautiful game 2014 San Antonio Spurs. But as far as roster build, I think it's a good comparison.
Tony,
I just have to say,
go ahead, Tony.
I have to say this, and then I shall shut up. I promise. I'm looking at Manu Ginobili's career in 08-09 or 07-08. He averaged 19.5. That was the most points he ever averaged in a season. Tyler is at 21 right now.
There's no comp for him.
We're underselling this.
Let's be fair. Again, I feel like I always
a little different, Greg.
Wait. There's like 10 more possessions a game now.
Well, although not for the Heat, because we know the Heat are 29th in pace.
It's still way higher than 2008, though. But
that's true.
His point is
that's
right.
True.
So, Tony, you think they're more? I've heard this comparison too. You think they're more 2019 Raptors? Is that fair? As Alex has got his lightsaber out.
And by the way, Alex pulled out a second lightsaber to try and get more light at one point, just so people know. I thought that was awesome.
Out of charge, so wasn't able to come with that.
So, more 2019 Raptors, you think?
Yeah. I think I see more comparisons there with Fred VanVleet and Tyler and Pascal and Jimmy, how they operate. Kyle and Kyle. Kyle's still Kyle. Like, to me, it feels more like that team than the Spurs, but both of those comps work perfectly well. People have brought up the Detroit Pistons team. I really don't see that one, but the Spurs team and the Raptors are the two comps I like
Tony,
the most.
I think the reason for the Pistons comp is there was no top 10 player on that team at that point, right? I mean, I think positionally the matches are more with those Raptors and Spurs teams. I think the Pistons team is just, it could be Billups one night. It could be Hamilton another night. It could be Rashid another night when he gave a damn. Tayshaun gave you moments. Ben was Bam-like in the fact that you had a great defender inside, although he played differently. I think that's the comp. I think the comps for playing style and type of player are much more 14 Spurs and 19 Raptors, but it's a whole nother conversation. Yes, Alex, rapid fire commenters, and let's get out of here and let everybody go.
Shout out all the commenters here. We love the interaction, the engagement. Of course, shout out to everybody watching, everybody who supports the network. 5 on the floor is yours, all that. But some of these comments are killing me, man. Not even that one. But I can't. That one seems a little bit sarcastic. Shout out Ben, who's always in the comments and has been very prolific tonight. This is a good rapid fire question. If you're saying Tyler doesn't have to be Donovan, isn't that admitting Tyler can't be what Donovan is? So he's over here trying to hold me and all of us.
No, and I get it from Ben, but here's the thing about it. He doesn't have to be Donovan now.
No,
I mean that's my point. There is an age difference there. He doesn't have. I'm not saying Donovan's an old player. He's not, but he also came in after a reasonably lengthy Louisville career compared to what others. How many years did Donovan play in college? 3? How old is Donovan now? 28?
He's 25, isn't he?
Is he? Is he that young? I thought he was older. Might be wrong about that.
And I wanted to. Are you going to keep going on the Mitchell thing?
No, I'm just saying. Get one more comment. Let's get out of here.
25.
This one made me laugh. I was about to shout him out just for a different comment. DJ Super said, definitely fair. We're deeper than they were as far as the Spurs. He said, I'd say Vic has the Manu role. Tyler is just a walking bucket. Please stop comparing him to 6 men. I know he's going to win it, but please just stop with these comps.
Well, he's going to win it and make me $1,000. But beyond that, okay, by the way, I got in at that 20-1. But
let me
what I'll
hold
say
$5.
is I think we I think we should acknowledge I think we're only comparing him to 6 men to make the point that his trajectory is different from many of those 6 men. And I'm just trying to make the point that guys are look, when Dwayne Wade was in his before the blow up, okay, his rookie season, let's say after his rookie year, okay, the best like at that stage, Gary Payton was a little past his prime. I'm trying to think who, like Jason Kidd, okay, in 2004, he was still at an elite level, right? Jason Kidd, Steve Nash. At that point, like you would have said, of course you would trade Dwayne Wade for one of those guys. Like Dwayne just had 1 year at point guard that was really good. He was a rookie of the year kid. He wasn't rookie of the year. It's not his natural position. You didn't know if he could play the 2 yet, right? You didn't know if he was going to slide over to a different spot. You had Eddie Jones at the 2 ostensibly, so there wasn't a spot for Dwayne. Every Heat fan would have said you trade him for Jason Kidd, okay, at that stage. Or you trade him for Steve Nash. Okay? It's a good thing they didn't. That's my point. Like, you just don't know what guys are going to become. And I'm not going to, Tyler has some limitations, there's no question. But the one limitation he doesn't have is he knows how to play. I mean, he just knows how to play. And I think that's why we've seen he has a natural feel for the game. Not everybody comes in with that. That is innate. And I think we've seen that develop now, and he has sold me in a way that maybe he didn't last year, that he can take a hit and come back from it physically, emotionally, mentally, and find new ways to succeed. And I just think he has been their most impressive player by this season, and I don't think it's close. I really don't. We've seen some growth from Bam, but it's strictly mindset.
The story is Tyler and Eric Spoelstra.
Yeah, that's what has propelled the majority of this. Okay, everybody else is pretty close to what we thought. Tyler has been another level. All right, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Thanks to Ben always for the comments. Thanks to Tony. Thanks to Greg. Thanks to Alex. Sign up for Off the Floor. We're taking topics directly off of there. You can get it from all of our Twitter feeds, so make sure you check that out. Also, Tony's on Pace and Space at halftime, so make sure you're joining that as well. And we're going to have a bunch of NCAA tournament content on. Tony's going to be involved with that with Sean. I may actually have to watch a game. Have a good night, everybody.